Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning and welcome to the webinar. Today we're going to be talking about information, specifically about how information can help you grow your business. I'm Nick Hughes, and together with I'm Nick Hughes, I'm the one on the right. Along with my partner Judy, we own the consulting firm called Your Planning Partners. And together with our team of consultants and coaches, we deliver programs to help small business owners to build strong and sustainable businesses. What does strong and sustainable mean? Well, strong means it'll withstand all the ups and downs of the business cycles. Sustainable means it will continue to grow in profit and in value, and so that one day, if you so wish, you can, of course, sell it. So if you are building a business and you want to be strong and sustainable, then you must plan and manage all parts of the business. Building a business, after all, is complex because the business itself is complex. You need the right information to make the right decisions and undertake the right actions. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Specifically, we're going to talk about why you need information to build a business. Then we're going to touch on what is information. Sometimes it's not quite clear. Information actually is quite a complicated thing, so we're just going to talk about what it is and therefore how you can use it. Then we will deal with how to deal with bad or non-existent information. And all the way through this, we're going to take time out to identify the information that you might need in managing your business growth. So that's our agenda for today, for this morning, I should say.
And as I said, I'd be interested in knowing what information do you feel you're lacking that might be stopping you from growing your business?
Yes, please share that with us. That would be wonderful. Whenever I am asked to talk to people about the relationship of information and business, my mind always goes to that place of what would it be like if the business owner had no information? And when I think about that, I think of the early explorers who would set sail not really knowing where they were going or when they would get there or even if they would get there at all. And when I think of these brave souls, I think that growing a business without the right information is like these early explorers. You know you're going somewhere, you just don't know where, and you don't know when you'll get there, if at all. So we believe you cannot grow a strong and sustainable business without accurate and current information. Information tells you what is going on. It tells you what direction you're going, how fast you're traveling, and when you might get there. It's that navigation aid that the early explorers lacked so much of. Information tells you a change is required. For example, you might realize that the cost of delivering your service to your customers is costing too much, and you need to change the way that delivery is done so that you can bring those costs down. Once again, this information is helping you to decide that a change is required and what that change might be. Information helps you plan. It gives you the valuable information about the past year that will guide you in planning the upcoming year. For example, you might discover that what you thought was your ideal client is in fact not your ideal client, and you've got to make changes there for the plans ahead. And information gives you trends. Trends are really important. Example, if your information tells you that sales always drop off in the summer, can you use this slower period to work on new products or implement new systems? Trends are really, really important to the business owner because it can point in a direction that you weren't aware of before.
So you're talking here about your own trends versus the trends of the industry or the trends of your clients. Is that right?
That's a good question, because here I was specifically talking about the business trends, but in fact, when you're looking at these, you should, of course, be looking at your industry trends, the economic trends, and other ones as well, yes.
Okay, actually, it just occurred to me that we should also consider the trends of our clients. What are the trends in their industries that we should be responding to?
Yeah, for sure. But here's a word of warning. Do not trigger actions or changes based on one piece of information. For example, you might get a complaint from one client, and this complaint doesn't necessarily mean you need to make major changes to your client services. It might be a one-off situation or a unique situation that you realize will never happen again. But if you start getting repeated complaints from your clients, you have a trend there.
And this is one of the reasons that I recommend to our clients that they actually record that kind of thing. So if you get a complaint or you have someone, actually the other side as well, who compliments something about your business, write it down in your calendar or your day timer somewhere. Make sure that you're journaling it or capturing it, because otherwise we tend to go by gut and say, oh, well, I've had all these comments, but have we had one, or have we had two, or have we had 20? And that's the big mistake that we make very often, is not documenting it.
Yeah. And here we have a triangle. It's the start of the strategic focus decision-making triangle. This is again where the information plays such a key role in your decision-making. But it's not the only thing that plays a role in your decision-making. Intuition, you know, that gut feel, that sense that this doesn't feel right, this doesn't look right, or this is definitely the right decision regardless of what people are saying. You must take that into account when you're making decisions, for sure. And there's wisdom. You have the wisdom that you have picked up over the years from your work, from your schools, from your family, from your friends. Some people call it experience, but it's much more than that. We call it the experience of life. That wisdom is naturally in you, and you should not ignore it when you're having to make a decision. And then the third component is the information. The information gives you the facts. Some people, it tells you what has happened, and in some cases what might be happening in the future. So the three things that use together, information, intuition, and wisdom, are all part of the decision-making process.
A really good example of where these three come in, actually, is when you're hiring somebody. The information, so many people hire because they intuitively like the person, and that's great, but you really still need to do the reference checking and get the resume and go through all of the process in order to ensure that you're making a sound business decision.
Yeah. All three of these, information, intuition, and wisdom, play a part, but play a different part depending on the overall context. Sometimes intuition with a bit of wisdom and information thrown in are required to arrive at a decision. Sometimes information is the key component, but you filter it through your intuition and wisdom. So don't ignore your gut sense. Don't fight the wisdom that's there naturally, and collect the right information so that you can be sure you're always making good decisions, or at least most of the time you're making good decisions. As mentioned at the beginning of this webinar, a business is a complex entity, and this is shown here in our organization model. As you can see, there are 7 components that all businesses have, and it is up to you, the business owner, to manage them all and to make sure they're all working together like a well-oiled machine. So let me just get a... So up here at the top, we have marketing, and this is to get people to come and be aware of you and to get in front of you and bring the right prospects to the company. You have a product or service, and really this bubble here, product or service, this is the center of your universe. Without a product, there is no business. It doesn't have to be the cheapest, but it does have to be the best in both quality and delivery as far as your ideal clients are concerned. So you have to manage that well. Then here we have operations. This is the messiest part of a business. All those processes and systems and rules and regulations that enable the business to function. As we keep saying, the business is a complex piece of machinery, and it needs to work flawlessly. The reality is very often that the operations are either too expensive or too inefficient or a combination of both, and it needs your attention. And financial. You are in business to make money. You want a personal income commensurate with your responsibility and the risks you're taking. And you need to build the value of the business so that one day, when you want to, you can sell it. All of these need financial tracking and controls that you manage through information. And the team. You cannot build a business with the help of people who can do some things better and faster than you. You absolutely need a team. You need to find and keep good people. You need information to help you manage the team. It might be about the status of a project or how well people are achieving their targets. Gain information. And sales. You must stay focused on sales from both new and existing customers. Information around sales will include both the actual sales themselves and information about prospecting. You know, how many prospects have you talked to this week? And customer service. Poor customer service is the death knell for companies.
I'm just going to leap into all of this for a second, and particularly the sales and customer service and marketing, which is my passion. The reality is that this is an area that we really very often don't keep our numbers. We don't keep the data to therefore create the information we need. So we tend to think we know where our business is coming from. We tend to think we know what marketing efforts are bringing us the results we need. In fact, in this day and age, we're really able to track our efforts and track the return on our investment of records much easier than ever before because of things like Google Analytics, email, CRMs, all of those tools. So when you're building your business, you can start a business without those tools in place to help you track the data, to collect the information. But to grow your business, you absolutely have to start to implement those tools so that you can track you can collect the information you need to make wise decisions.
And as you realize that all the tools that Judy was talking about, of course, are information producing tools, so that again, you're aware of what is going on. Customer service, as I mentioned, can be the death knell for companies. Bad customer service is so insidious because unless you're being fed accurate information about the quality of service and the satisfaction of your customers, you could find your reputation is being harmed without you realizing it. And an example of a really simple tool to keep track of the level of your customers' happiness, if you like, is called the Net Promoter Score. Google Net Promoter Score, and you will come across lots of articles and instructions on how to use this. It's very simple, and it's really simple for your customers, so they respond well to it.
Another thing in customer service is also the platforms like Yelp, for instance. Those platforms are a really good place to hear what people are saying about you. Encourage your happy customers to go there. It's an important thing. It's marketing for sure, but it also will give you some idea of what your customers are thinking.
Thank you. Absolutely. And the glue that keeps all of this together is this one in the middle, plan and manage. And that's the one where all the information flows through and you can make your decisions and keep track of where everything's happening. But now let's talk about information you might need for your business. And just bear with me for a second. We have a technical glitch, which is stopping us moving. There we go. The way you start identifying information that you need that you're not possibly getting now is to start asking lots and lots of questions. And each of these questions starts off with the, do you know if? So for example, in the first one there, do you know if your revenue is growing or shrinking? You compare this month's revenue with last month's revenue and see a huge jump in revenue, say. Yes, it's growing. But maybe you forgot that this month you had an unusually large sale that is distorting the number. And if you take that number away, in fact, your revenue is declining each month. And so you need to track this information and start to make decisions and initiate actions. Do you know if your marketing efforts are working? Are you getting enough leads? Are the Google Analytics showing an improvement every month? Are you getting no leads? And in which case, something is obviously wrong there. Again, this is information telling you that everything is fine or everything is not fine and you need to take action. Do you know if your customers are satisfied with your service? There we are, back to that client customer satisfaction again. We all too often assume that the lack of complaints means our customers are satisfied. But that is a dangerous assumption. People by nature don't really like complaining. They just quietly go to the competition. So go back to that Net Promoter Score or equivalent and really keep track of the level of the satisfaction your customers have.
And can I just say something on this as well? Is statistically, Pareto was a very smart guy, and it's the old 80-20 rule. And typically, if you are getting complaints, don't let complaints from one person in your company lead you to believe that everything is broken. Have a look at that, because generally speaking, 80% of your problems are with 20% of your clients. And so really assess who that 20% are, because maybe you shouldn't be working with those people. Maybe they're not actually your ideal client in the first place. And you could eliminate your customer service problems by not taking on that kind of client.
Could I just change that slightly? 80% are client challenges rather than problems.
No, 20% of the challenges.
Oh, the other
20% of the challenges, but 80% of the issues.
Thank you. So do you know if your projected sales are strong or weak? Do you know by your sales numbers game, which we will come to in a little later in this webinar, are showing you that your future sales are going to be strong or weak? If you don't know this, this is probably a very critical piece of information. You should find out how to do that. And do you know if your team is motivated? Have you asked them? Have you talked to them? Have you done surveys with them if you so desire? But it's important that your team is also motivated and bought into your vision of the business. So here are just 5 examples of do you know if questions. You should just go on and keep drilling down, and we will come back to some more a little later.
And how would you find out if your team is motivated?
You can obviously, depending on the size of your team, you can do surveys. There are some excellent surveys out there that the HR specialists know about, which really does dig down into how the team is feeling and their motivation level. And certainly by talking to them, by watching them as well. Do they look motivated? Do they look excited when they come to work? And things like that.
Yeah, I'm just looking for where to draw the line between intuition and information.
You'd only go to an expert for something like a survey if your intuition was telling you everything was fine, is not fine. Sorry, not fine. In other words, you have a sense that there's something wrong and they're not being honest with you because they don't like to hurt your feelings, not because they're hiding anything. So that's it. I'd certainly use your intuition first and foremost. So what is information? Well, here's a fancy little chart. This is our information model. If we say that the information is this piece of paper down here, it might be on your screen, it might be on a sheet of paper, it comes to you in all sorts of different forms. But where does it actually come from? Well, it comes from a whole bunch of pieces of data. And the data is stored somewhere in your databases. It gets processed at some point when you want the information, and the information is produced to you. And the reason I'm going through this is we want to come back to this model in terms of when we're dealing with bad information. But let me use an example here. Let's say you're a service company and you deliver your service by your team members spending time with clients. Do you know how much time they're spending with each of the clients? If you don't, then there's another piece of information you probably want. So in this case study, we'd say that the source here, we would say, first of all, this company should implement a time reporting system or a time tracking system. So the source of the data are your team members, each filling out how much time they're spending with each client as they work through the day. And so stored in your time tracking system is piles and piles and piles of data, all about clients, team members, and minutes that they spend together. And so at the end of each month, you process that data, and you get a report that says, for client A, we spent 10 hours, client B, we spent 15 hours, and so on. And if your pricing model is based on the fact you shouldn't spend more than 10 hours per client per month, then immediately you can go to the ones that you're spending more of that time and start to put in remedial actions there. So we're always going back to the data to get the right information. There's rear view mirror information and there's road ahead information. Rear view mirror information, as the name implies, is information that tells you about something that has happened in the past. So for taking our previous example of time reporting and making sure we're spending the right amount of time with each client, you can't go back and change it. You can only look forward and make changes as you go forward. So rear view information is stuff you can't change, but you can change as you go forward. So what you're doing is reacting to rear view mirror image. And the one that you're probably most familiar with are your financial statements, because when you review your financial statements, it's telling you about what has happened in the past, what your revenue was in the past and what your profit was in the past, and if any changes are required, it's as you move forward.
Yeah, and it's not bad information, simply,
No.
It's simply because it's random. It's information that allows you to start to think about what actions you need to take moving forward.
Yeah, so sticking with our service company and time reporting, if you find that you're spending more time than you had anticipated with each client, you've got to then develop the strategies moving forward. You might have to increase your prices, or you might have to decrease the time, or you might have to implement a combination of both. Then the road ahead information tells you what is probably going to happen in the future. It allows you to be proactive as opposed to reactive. An example is your sales numbers game. If you know you need to meet 5 new prospects a month to get the opportunity to make 2 proposals, which you know will end up as 1 client, then you're truly in charge. Because if you know that you only met 3 new prospects last month, you're not going to meet your sales targets, so you have to meet more this month. But what this information is telling you is, while it's telling you something that happened in the past, it tells you what is going to happen in the future if you don't make changes. So far, so good. Any questions, please send them in. We will respond to them as they come in.
As a reminder, what information do you wish you had right now in your company that you don't have? And if you had it, what would you do with it?
And then there's financial information and operational information. Financial information tells you the financial health of the business. Operational information tells you how well the business is working, and you definitely need both. So on the financial information, some examples came up here: profit, assets, revenue, expenses, liabilities, all those things related to money fall under the financial umbrella. And the operational might be product quality, delivery times, processes, technology, and so forth. How well is the business actually operating? So let's come back to ask some more questions, more of the do you know if questions. This is the way to remind you, this is the way you identify what information you want, and from there you can decide how you're going to get it. So do you know if your product or service is priced competitively and profitably? Are people buying your service or product? Probably means the price is okay, but are they profitable? And that's where you need to dig into your financial statements and your pricing models. Do you know if your clients are paying you in a timely manner? It's not unusual for us to start working with clients and discover that actually they don't know when the clients are paying, and that those clients who are paying more than 90 days after being invoiced are basically borrowing money from you. So do you know if your clients are paying you in a timely manner? If you don't, I suggest you start checking that one as well. Do you know if your new client onboarding process is effective and efficient? It is generally accepted that the most important time for the client-supplier relationship to blossom or bomb is during the first 100 days of the relationship. So that onboarding process is obviously during the first 100 days is really critical if you're going to continue with that relationship in a blossoming manner. And do we have some questions here?
Yes, from Jen. So how do you know if client onboarding process is efficient? If it is efficient from my point of view, but my clients don't seem to be participating in the onboarding process, is this process a problem or something else?
You want to take that one, Judy?
Part of it, sure. The whole thing we're always dealing with is the difference between user experience and in-house efficiency. So the real thing we're always striving for is client retention and for clients to tell other people about us. That's really critical. So obviously, if it's not working from the client standpoint, then it's not working. It's our responsibility as business owners to provide our clients with an onboarding process that they're comfortable with, that is as easy as possible for them, and that we can then make as efficient as possible at our end. It's not our client's job to fit into our system. It's our job to make it as easy as possible for them to work with us. So it does require a system. There is always a system that can be put in place, and that system can be it can be automated, can be manual, or a combination of both. It could be processes. But the reality is that if the user experience sucks, then we haven't achieved a good onboarding process.
And just add to the onboarding of that first 100 days, there's a concept out there that I think it's called the first 100 days that speakers are traveling the country talking about. Google that. There's, again, a lot of good information about things you can do in that first 100 days to make the relationship blossom. It's very good.
So I just want to add here how you get information, because this is about information that will help our companies grow. So one of the big things is when you do something on a lot of online programs now, immediately you get a how did we do so far? You know, what was your user experience? So that's the important thing as well with clients. When you're onboarding a client, and then send out right after you've done the onboarding, how are we doing so far? Get their input from them. That input is really valuable and will help you create the efficient systems internally to move forward and grow.
Thank you. Yes, for sure. And the final question here is, and again, there are more questions you could ask yourself. Do you know if your contact database is up to date and accurate? This is probably the most valuable piece of information your company has, the contact database. And you want to make sure it's accurate and up to date, so that you're not sending things to the wrong address or telephoning, telephoning the wrong number. Excuse me. So good information helps you build a strong and sustainable business, and is also an asset. Good decisions mean good results, and that'll mean good results for the company. potential buyers of your company value good information. They appreciate that it is being managed well, and that they're not going to have to spend a lot of time recreating the information wheel. And it helps you forecast more accurately. And that's the toughest job of, well, there should be a lot of tough jobs for business owners, but to be able to forecast accurately means you can make your plans more meaningful and you can track to your growth plans.
It's for small business particularly, there's a real inclination to work in a void of information and or to work from the gut only. And it's a common issue for all of us in small business. And part of the reason is because it seems like we already have so many things to do, let alone collect information. One of the ways to do that is incorporate the information collection process into everything right from the beginning, so that you don't have to go back and try and put things in place afterwards.
Yes, and certainly don't work on your gut alone. Remind you of the triangle we looked at. Good decision-making requires intuition, that's your gut, wisdom, and information. However, bad information is a liability, and it creates information chaos. Chaos is a bit like this picture here of electrified railway tracks. Looks like complete chaos, but chaos is a very great confusion. It's complete disorder. Information chaos grows exponentially until it stops you in your tracks. So we have to deal with information chaos. And I've got a bit of an aside here. It's March break here in Ontario, and I assume across Canada. Here's something to share with your kids. The power of exponentially growing is really told in this, if you could do this exercise, is you take a piece of paper, and if you could, you fold it into itself 50 times. Now, it would be pretty impossible because the height of the resulting paper would be the distance from the Earth to the Sun. So that is huge. And that's what happens in information chaos. It gets worse and worse, faster and faster, and we have to deal with it. So what are the symptoms of information chaos? And I'm sure you have had some of this, or if not all of them. And I'd like to remind you that Judy put out the call there that if anybody has any comments about the information they would love to have but don't have, please share it with us. One of the symptoms you see a lot is lost information. You're in a meeting, somebody says, we need that information to make this decision. Someone goes off to get it and can't find it. It's hidden somewhere. It's been put somewhere that nobody can remember where it is. That is information chaos. Then there's wrong information. The information is just plain wrong. That creates chaos too. But there are two types of wrong information. There's the good type, which is wrong information that you know is wrong. At least then you can put things in place to correct it. Here's the nightmare one. Information that is wrong, but you don't even know it's wrong. And that is dreadful. Example could be your records show that your planning partners is outstanding on an invoice to you of over 90 days. And that's horrendous to be. And so next thing we know is we get a very irate call from either you or your bookkeeper insisting we pay instantly, only to be told that we paid this invoice 60 days ago. That is a very embarrassing situation, and also makes an out-of-date information. This is sort of similar to wrong information, except it is correct, but it's out of date. I'm sure you've all been into a store, seen an item on a shelf somewhere, and gone over to the person who works there and say, do you have any more of these in stock? And they look into their computer and say, yep, we definitely do, but we'll hold it. Let me go into the back and check. because they've learnt over time that their inventory system is usually out of date.
I think the most common out-of-date information for our clients, and sometimes for us, we get caught in the trap, is contact information, is client data, not only clients, sorry, contact data. People who've moved on, out-of-date contact information, that sort of thing.
Right. And inconsistent, excuse me, inconsistent information. This is usually caused if you've got the same piece of information stored more than once in your systems. One will get updated correctly and the other will not, and you won't know which one is the correct piece of information. We'll come back to that as well. And then the time to get the information. It takes so long to pull it together and present it to you that the situation that you wanted to study has long since passed and the information is no longer valid. So these are the symptoms. If you're suffering from any of these, then you have information chaos. What do? You follow our strategy of the 3 C's. You correct it, you make sure the information is current, and you make sure the information is consistent. So correcting information. You only really want to worry about the information that is absolutely critical to the management of your business, to the growth of your business. You're never going to correct all the information that flows through your company, so focus in on the critical information. Is there a question? Okay. And by doing that, what you're asking yourself is this information absolutely critical to know if my business is going to grow or if I'm going to be able to manage the business? And so that's the information that you want to make sure is correct.
So one of the questions we have is from Gemma, and the question is that as an online service provider, I find it difficult getting mailing addresses, especially many small businesses work from their home, thus not always willing to give this information. So many times I only have an email address and a URL. So my comment there is, it comes back to deciding what information you really need. If it's not necessary that you have the mailing address and phone number for people, then it isn't bad information because you don't actually need it in the first place. If it is necessary information, then the strategy that I would always recommend to clients is explain to people why this information is needed. People are usually pretty helpful if they understand the reason you want something. So on an online business, there may be question on the other end as to why you need their mailing address and phone number. There's a real hesitation on the part of people to give that kind of information in case it's being passed on or used wrongly. So really think about, do I need that information? And if I do need that information, how can I position it so that it's easy for my prospects or clients to give me that information? I hope that helps, Gemma.
And if you have a follow-up, Gemma, question on Judy's comments, please feel free to let us know.
Yes.
Current information. This is, you want the information to be up to date as well as correct. Well, the answer here is you record the data when the event occurs. An example, again, let's use the retail store. When you went in to buy that product, the person who worked there would have scanned the product, and instantly the inventory should have been updated, the revenue has been updated, and so on and so forth. So to record the data as close to the event as you can, ideally at the event. So if you take your QuickBooks, if you're using an accounting system like QuickBooks, and you use it to produce your invoices, as soon as it's produced the invoice and printing it out, it's updating your revenue. That's recording the data when the event occurs. There's no lag time there. And that's really important to keep the information current. Because we have to remember that we are very much living in the information age. So the information you have is essential to help you build and manage the business. And consistent. We talked about duplicate data. We had a situation some time ago when we started working with a client, and they had a CRM, and they had QuickBooks, and they had a contact database. All their clients were in QuickBooks and in the contact database and in the CRM. And so they had that situation there that if the client phoned in and said, I've changed my address, it would get changed on one, but not all three of those. Really, really take a look at the information you have in your company, and if it's being stored in more than one place, one of the strategies has got to be to pull it together so it's only stored once.
Okay, it's a perfect segue into Raj's question, and I know that Raj is in bookkeeping and accounting. So the question is, what do we recommend for a client database to maintain the client's information? Is it a CRM? That's a really big question.
Good question.
It's a really good question and big question. Here's the answer, though. A lot of people use Outlook. A lot of people use a CRM. There are CRMs like a couple of people, our clients use Insightly. Some people use HighRes. The one criteria is that that it's seamless. So I know that you are in bookkeeping and accounting, and I suspect that all of your clients are on QuickBooks. What you want to make sure is that the CRM you use is talking to your QuickBooks database of clients. So that's where, in this world especially, I would call on a technical person. A CRM is what you're looking for because you want to be able to manage that relationship. It's not only to send out invoices. You want to manage the relationship with your client and with your prospects or with the people who are in your community. So ultimately, a CRM is where you're headed. You want to make sure that it can talk to the important systems that you use, however, where their other contact information would be. And I know that there are some out there. You simply need to talk to your IT people. If you want more information about that, I'd be happy to put you in touch with our IT people, so you can give me a call or send me an email.
Yeah, that just raises a good point. What we've often found is when businesses run into challenges, they buy another piece of technology and plug it in, and away they go. And when we end up with a bit of a spaghetti of technologies that don't talk to each other, don't have any interface with each other, and that's when the information chaos really gets horrendous. So Raj's question is valid because if you spend time trying to find one piece of technology, if you can, that will satisfy all your needs, then you're going to have consistent information. I'm just coming back to the information model that I showed you at the beginning, because what it is when we're talking about consistent, correct, accurate, timely information, which is all down here in this report, it's really not the report that's wrong, it's the data back here that's wrong. So let's talk a little bit about making sure your data is correct. So it's all about good, clean data. I suspect you've all heard of garbage in, garbage out. So let me come back here. If this data here is garbage, in other words, it's wrong, it doesn't matter how good your processing is, this information is going to be wrong. So whenever you're looking at correcting information, go back to the source, which is the data, and find out why it's wrong. So garbage in, garbage out. We talked about the single source of data. This is the entry point of the data into your company here. Make sure it's only entered once in one place. Again, we're talking about the data. And similarly, store data once and once only. Try and get away from this having the same piece of data in multiple systems around the business. And if you've arrived at that point, start initiating some strategies to pull all your systems together into one. That will help
Mm-hmm.
the storing data once and once only.
One of the things I'm going to say here, when you talk to an IT person, be sure that before you talk to an IT person, be sure that you have thought through what is it that you're trying to achieve. Because an IT person can only help you with the solution if they understand what the purpose is and where you're going. And that's why it's really important to think through, what do I need this information for, and how am I going to use it on a day-to-day basis? Because without that, knowing that, your IT guys can't, or girls, can't possibly help you get the right solution.
Yeah, that's very true. And the work we do with our clients, when they're going out looking for a technology solution, one of the things we do is before they even go looking is we sit in a room and clearly identify what the requirements are, and that's invaluable. And the last thing about good, clean data is checks and balances. Wherever you can, put in checks and balances. Example being the bookkeeper, when they finish the month's posting, will reconcile the bank. If the bank reconciles, that tells you that a lot of the key information in your general ledger is correct. So what information do you need to manage the growth of your business? It's everything we've been talking about, of course, but is there anything unique in your particular business? We're a service consulting business, so we have some unique information requirements. But really think about what information do you need to manage the growth of your business. And do that by going through those questions that we mentioned earlier. Even better, do it with your team or do it with other people. But just spend a good amount of time going through the questions that we mentioned earlier. Sorry.
So I'm going to just take a minute and give you, because we've got just a couple of minutes, give you some concepts of some places where you can source information. Stats Canada has tons of information if you're looking for information about industries. So if you're looking for information to help you assess how you can better help your clients or how you can better serve your clients or what trends are going on in your client industry or in your own industry, I highly recommend Stats Can. Their information is usually a year behind, but it's good. It's better than you're going to be able to collect on your own.
So here's a quiz. What's that sort of information? It's rear view mirror information.
Absolutely. It is rear view mirror information. Associations. Your own association that you work in, whether it be accounting, whether it be IT, whether it be project management, whatever associations you might belong to, they very often and usually have up-to-date information about their industry and about what's going on in the industry. It could be profitability, it could be pricing, it could be trends. I would have a dig around. And universities have a stash. If you go onto universities' resource list, they have a stash of information. Again, all of this is rear view information in that it's been collected and compiled, but it's the kind of information that we can't get by just simply talking to our team and our clients. It's the kind of information that comes from, I guess, academia and collecting a lot of data, masses of data that wouldn't otherwise be available to us.
Thank you. So to grow a successful business, you need accurate and timely information to help you navigate. That's what we've been talking about. So to do that, you must identify what information you need and then figure out if there's an information gap. In other words, do you have that information or do you need to have strategies to put together that information? But here's the most important step. It's all very well managing your information, but if you don't act on it, then you're just wasting your time, and not you, we would all be wasting your time. So you must act on the information, not ignore it. Otherwise, it really is not the value that we're claiming it to be. So you must have the information, and then you must act on it. So don't be one of those brave souls that set out to the unknown. Become an information expert and use the power of information to achieve the success you want with your business. And if you have any questions on what we've covered today, please feel free to get hold of either myself, Nick, or Judy at your planning partners, and we're more than happy to explore this topic further.
Okay, so this is what will happen now after we say goodbye. On Friday, you will receive a recording of this webinar and copy of the webinar slides. You will also receive right after this a quick evaluation form. It will take you about 2 minutes. We're collecting information. It only has a couple of three, I think it has 4 questions in it. So please, if you could take a minute and do that for us, it would be great. Also, if you want to talk to me about a half-day vision session, which is the first step in the work we do, please give me a call. I would love to explain to you what that is and how it brings clarity to you and your business. And follow us on Twitter and link with us on LinkedIn and be a part of our Google+. And also, if you go to our YouTube channel, you can see all of our past webinars. They're available for you there. And our next webinar is April 15th at 8 a.m. because our sessions are always before the crowds come on. It's successful networking, building online relationships and building relationships online and offline. And Kathy, who is a consultant with your planning partners, Kathy Hugovine, will be joining me, and we will be having a lot of fun building relationships. So I look forward to hearing from you. As Nick said, please feel free to ask us any questions, send along any inquiries that you might have. Thank you.
Yes, thank you again for joining us this morning, and I hope you found the information helpful and valuable.